This is a Soapy Florals video. As we move deeper into spring, I've got my mind on fragrances like this, also some fresh and clean, so fresh and so clean, clean fragrances. In fact, I have a list of videos that I have planned out for y'all, one of which is, actually, it's going to be called So Fresh and So Clean. And I think I have a list of 10 fragrances that just feel clean, uplifting, refreshing, and all of that for deeper into spring, moving into summer. So that one will be forthcoming. Today's video is focused on a little bit more than a handful of fragrances that are pretty soapy to me. They have some floral aspects and certainly some other aspects as well, but I think of them as generally soapy floral fragrances. I'll leave the heavier, more controversial ones for the back end of the video. I did want to start off with what I have to call an honorable mention, only because I don't own it, but I do think it's a nice fragrance. And it happens to be one of the favorites of the viewers here, Khaleesi of Kittens. Come on down to the carpet, girl. You're the next contestant on The Price is Right. She really, really loves this fragrance. Her name is Jennifer in Portland, Oregon. Hey, girl, hey. It is called Exit the King, Etat Libre d'Orange. I have sampled a lot of fragrances from that house. I haven't actually pulled the trigger on any. There have been a few that I have really enjoyed. This is one that I did have my eye on and I thought was really nice. Some of the other fragrances that I have kind of take the place of what that fragrance does for me. So it's called Exit the King, which is an interesting name. I don't know the history behind it, but you can go onto the website and I'm sure there's a storyline about why it's named that. I found this fragrance to be a really clean smelling floral. There was something sort of fresh and cool and uplifting. And I mean cool as in it felt cool on me, like temperature wise to wear it. I wrote down that it smelled like clean jasmine and this shampooy, soapy floral fragrance that was very pleasant. If you look at other reviews, people tend to pick up in this fragrance a moss note and a patchouli note. And for them, it comes across heavier than the sampling experience I had. As I always say, sampling is not like having the actual fragrance. You sometimes get very different experiences when you're able to spray the fragrance on and do like a full day wear. So this was just from me sampling sort of on my arms a couple times here and there to get a feel for the fragrance. But for me, it felt cool and clean and soapy and floral. And I didn't get any touches of the moss or the patchouli, at least as I was sampling it. So let me know if you've tried this fragrance and if that comes through for you. But I think the opening of this is interesting. And as it starts to get into the mid, I was really enjoying just the pleasant nature of that spring-like cleanly floral thing. And mostly jasmine came forward for me in this fragrance. Let me know if you have tried Exit the King. And if you know the story from the website or elsewhere, let us know that in the comments. I have been too lazy to look that up, but that would be first on my list. It's always interesting to go to the actual website of the fragrance house and see how they describe the fragrance and what they're hoping that you pick up in something. Sometimes it's completely different than my experience, but I appreciate knowing what it is that they wanted to convey to the wearer. So the next one I've talked about quite a bit here in recent videos as it sort of had a resurgence out of my collection and jumped up, raised its hand to be worn again and loved, picked and chosen and worn and all of those things. Prada La Femme. So this is still sold. For some reason, I thought it was discontinued, but I'm not on the Prada website like ever. I don't shop Prada like that, but it is still on the website. This is the La Femme Eau de Parfum. There is an intense version of this that has the red leather wraparound on the back. I used to own that, and I like that too. That one is heavier on the like a tuberose note or something close to that. I don't remember exactly. And then I remember it having almost like this patchouli-esque touch in the base. And again, I haven't looked at the notes for that in a while, but I much preferred this one and ended up selling the intense version or giving it away. I don't really remember. So this one here is so beautiful for all year round, but spring and summer. So on the website, it highlights for this fragrance, bergamot, a ylang-ylang, and a sweet warm vanilla as the sort of key notes that they want you to pick up from this fragrance. But I'm going to tell you, this smells like a soapy floral to me. I actually, for me, get this nice combination of white and yellow florals in the middle. It's a creamy, soapy fragrance, like very high-end, luxurious bath products that have like some amber in them or something of that nature. Like the Amber Accord has vanilla as a prominent aspect of it. So that might be what I'm picking up, the sweet warm vanilla that comes across a little bit ambery to me. But I love that this has a luxurious soap combo smell with yellow and white florals for me. I don't pick up citrus in this fragrance. I don't pick up a bergamot note or anything like that. And I love that this is described as a hyper sensual fragrance. I don't think of this as sensual or sexy, although I guess it could be. I think of this as elegant and refined and uplifted and a very sort of classy fragrance. I call this like a Sunday fragrance that you would wear to church or to brunch or to baby showers or to family events when you want it to be in your highest feminine self, but still be classy and elegant. This is a very elegant soapy floral, but on the creamier side. And like I said, there's a density to this fragrance that I really appreciate. So that is La Femme from Prada, Prada La Femme. And by the way, if you're wondering what this wraparound is, it's supposed to represent the classic Prada material that's used on bags. I think it's called Saffiano leather. And then I learned from the website just now that the reason it's mirrored is to reflect back to you the multifaceted nature of this fragrance. So beautiful fragrance that had a big moment on YouTube. I featured this in my Forgotten YouTube Loves video that I recently posted. And I also wore this in the month of April. So it's in that April Fragrance Award video. Here's another fragrance, this next one, that when you go to the website, it claims you're supposed to have a sensual experience with it. I don't. This is like a motherly, clean, fresh and creamy smell. So it has some similarities in the feel of the fragrance to Prada La Femme, although it has a departure in some of the florals that make up the fragrance and in the base. This is Dior's Pure Poison, one of the prettiest bottles in my collection. I love the effect on this, the frost on these ridges here, and this nice little sort of purpley, violety ombre effect or faded effect here, the frost of the bottle. This is a really neat one for spring. I will say for those of you that maybe are on the younger side or you appreciate younger smelling fragrances, this perhaps might be a little bit matronly for you, a little bit more mature, shall we say. But I love this. I love the creaminess of the florals and the sandalwood. Sandalwood is in the base and it's a nice creamy sandalwood versus the drier, leaning, super woody dill smelling, like dill pickle smelling sandalwood. I don't smell dill in sandalwood, but some people do. So I just want to point that out for those of you that are prone to picking that up. This is not that. This is a much more creamy version of sandalwood in the base, along with amber. And you know that amber, as an accord, as I just mentioned, has vanilla in it. So there's something sort of sweet and creamy in the base. Sweet's not the right word. I'm sorry. Sort of softer, more delicate, and sweet as opposed to savory, maybe. Not sweet like gourmand sweet. The key notes that are pointed out on the website in terms of the experience of this, just gotta pause. Look, Pure Poison is the fragrance that celebrates the purest form of seduction. No, this is not a seducing fragrance. This is not a fragrance that I would wear when I want to drive my man wild. No. This is a fragrance I would wear when I wanted to present as really put together, feminine, clean, soft, nice, soft, delicate edges. You want to present that sort of floral, feminine aspect with something else creamy to it. Here you go. Anyway, composed with orange blossom, jasmine, and gardenia. So those are the florals that come out of this fragrance. For me, that gardenia jasmine thing, and it doesn't have tuberose, but when you think about the trifecta of those three together, the effect that that floral trio gives is a little bit of what's here. It's a beautiful, beautiful soapy floral fragrance, undergirded by this really nice creamy sandalwood that I really truly appreciate. It's a lovely fragrance, and another one that I probably should have put in that Forgotten Fragrances video as having withstood the test of time. Did I mention it in there? I don't remember if I did or didn't, or maybe I put it in the pinned comment. This is lovely, and it's stood around in my collection for a long time when so many others have moved in and out through the years as I've sampled and tried a lot for you all. So then let's get into some that I think are maybe a little bit more controversial, depending on who you ask. I really like this next fragrance. It has somewhat mixed reviews here in my house. No one dislikes it, but they're just not sure how they feel about it. I think it's gorgeous. And this is Borelli from Tiziana Terenzi in these gorgeous bottles. This is part of what they call the Comet collection. So all of the fragrances that have this bottle shape, the black ones, these are named after comets or some other sort of celestial thing. So I'll share some of the notes here that stand out for me or the feeling that I get. Definitely some soapy aldehydes. And this is a gentler soap, like traditional clean soap in the shower versus maybe some of the creamy soap notes that you get in La Femme and in Pure Poison. This one is a more traditional soap, but it does remind me a little bit of a soap that I loved to bathe with because it does have like a thickness to the smell, and that is the lever or lever. Remember that? I loved that soap in particular. This gives me a little bit of that versus the super, almost astringent smelling like Irish Spring types of soaps. Okay, so think about this still more in the luxurious soap direction, but more traditional soap smelling. And I like that this gets brighter. So it has bergamot at the top, mandarin, and soapy notes. The aldehydes are in the top, but for me, they are accompany the entire fragrance experience for this. I smell them deep into the dry down also. In the heart, or the middle experience of this, tuberose, rose, ylang-ylang, lily of the valley. Is the tuberose prominent? I can't say that for you. I love tuberose, and so it's hard for me to pick it out as a note that is just off-putting. So just know that in terms of my personal reviews for those of you that hate tuberose. For me, the florals in here are it's just a nice sort of flat floral, white floral accord that runs throughout the entire fragrance. It dominates more in the middle. The top is really about that citrus and soapy set of notes. They also accompany down into the fragrance as it starts to dry down, and the florals come up and take maybe equal footing with the citrus and the florals. And the base has some woody notes: Tuscan birch, African ebony, sandalwood, vanilla, musk. Again, the base of this comes across a lot like the base of Pure Poison in that it has a creamy, woody aspect to it that I think is just luxurious smelling. It smells wonderful. This is a great fragrance. It's pretty strong, as are just about all the Tiziana Terenzi fragrances that I have tried. I have about 20 from this line in my collection now. I adore the house. You know, I love everything about a lot of the fragrances that I have. The bottles, the experience, the longevity, the projection, the smells themselves. This one is beautiful. I would classify this as smelling super luxurious but easygoing at the same time. So Pure Poison is matronly and easygoing and nice wearing. You know, this one is La Femme, really sort of sophisticated smelling. Exit the King, that initial recommendation, is easygoing. I mean, that's like all day wear. This one lasts all day long and you can wear it anywhere too. I would just say maybe think about not spraying so heavy on this. I made the mistake the first time that I wore this of overspraying. Oh, wow. And it sort of just filled up every space I went into. Since then, when I've worn it, I spray a lot lighter and it's a much more pleasant experience for others around me. So Borelli, beautiful fragrance. Then moving on into full-on controversial territory, a fragrance that I still think is gorgeous in its own right and is polarizing. People are either old school, ride or die, hardcore, lifelong fans of this fragrance, or they freaking hate it. It's usually one or the other, and it has been accused of being one of the more vintagey smelling fragrances. I don't find it vintage smelling, but I do find that it has sort of an older school smell. Vintage, when I think of that, I think of really, really deep old school, like heavy patchouli, mossy, deeply like spicy ambery fragrances. So this is Chanel number 5, the classic number 5. This is an eau de parfum concentration. And this is, I think, my second bottle of fragrance that many of the women in my family wore, a classic, one of those fragrances that you got back in the day so that you could feel grown and sophisticated, even as a grown woman. And then when the young girls spritzed it on, you couldn't tell us nothing. It was like we were playing in our mom's, heels and makeup and putting on Chanel number 5, that kind of a deal. This is like a classic aldehydic fragrance in that when people think of aldehydes and soapy notes, this one definitely comes to mind, and sometimes not in a good way for folks. I think this is so rich and luxurious smelling. And I don't mean rich in terms of dollars. I mean rich just in terms of the complexity and depth and the way that the fragrance expresses itself on you. I have to say, my husband used to like this on me. When I wore it recently, he was like, whoa, what is that? And no, the fragrance has not gone off. This has still held its composure all these years later. If I'm not mistaken, this fragrance, are we in 2024? This fragrance, I think, is 15 years or more old. I've had it for a long time and it still smells just as great as when I first got it. So this has May Rose and Jasmine featured as some of the floral notes here. It says bright, crisp, not crisp, bright citrus top notes. This is right off of the Chanel website. I can't say I get a lot of citrus. I do get some beautiful, just like hefty florals and this amazing soapiness to it. Again, not a super like astringent soapiness. This one is less creamy than the ones that I've talked about. So it's a little bit more on the fresher side. It is not a fresh smelling fragrance. I'm talking about the aldehydes in here feel fresher to me. And it says there is a bourbon vanilla in the fragrance. There is something thick that is the foundation of this fragrance, like the pillar of this, something thick. Maybe it's vanilla that's standing out. I don't know. Maybe it's something more in an ambery direction. Maybe it's something else. I even pick up like a slight woodiness in the fragrance. This is such a complex one to describe. It's strong. It's projecting. You don't need a lot of this. This is one of the ones that you just put in your pulse points. Boop, boop, you know, maybe behind the ears, done. Like, don't go heavy and ham on this. You will nauseate people around you. So this is the Eau de Parfum concentration. I have tried some of the newer flankers, like I forget what they're called. There's a premier version, if I'm not mistaken. There's the Eau de Toilette, and then there is like is there an Eau Fraiche or low version that's supposed to be lighter? I've tried all of those and they're all lovely as well. My heart is with the original Eau de Parfum concentration, and I treasure this bottle. It's special to me because of the memories that I have associated with this fragrance being worn in my family in the past. The next fragrance is pricey, even on sale. So I'll link below the best price that I can find for you. And then the next fragrance is more affordable. But both of these fragrances that I'm going to end with here, I think are pretty controversial and challenging for lots of people to wear. So this one is Pikovaya Dama, and this is from the Stone Label collection from Xerjoff. And so I don't really love the little stone here in the front. It's a little goofy looking for me. I don't know, y'all. I don't know. Now, when you look up the notes here, especially on the Xerjoff website, you actually don't see any aldehydes listed. But for me, this comes across like a really sort of classic aldehydic fragrance, maybe even competing with like Chanel number 5. So perhaps one of the most aldehydic, at least presenting. You know, you talk about like in medicine, the patient presented with symptoms of dot, 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 dot. This presents aldehydic, even though it doesn't have any of those notes featured on the website. This is in honor, it's named in honor of a Russian novel by Alexander Pushkin, and the name translates into the Queen of Spades, which I think is pretty cool. The perfumers here wanted you to get, quote unquote, a warming comfort from this fragrance, but I get this amazingly elegant, soapy, deep, mysterious concoction here. Some of the notes that stand out, it's supposed to be a combination of citrus notes and rose at the top. There's this sort of like luxurious essential oil experience as the fragrance opens. Lots happening in the middle, including cedar and incense, nutmeg and coriander, and then a warm enveloping base, supposedly, patchouli, musk, bourbon vanilla, sandalwood. I feel like this just comes across, okay. L'Occitane sells this almond shower gel. Imagine that combined with rain bath, which you know I love from Neutrogena, with some honey added in, all wrapped around with this luxurious soapiness. That's what this fragrance smells like to me. It's incredibly elevated for me, incredibly special occasion, strong. For those of you that like those strong beast mode fragrances, the ones that walk into the room before you do, this may be one to check out. The full 100 ml bottle of this is outrageous. It's like over $600. And this one is a 50 ml, 1.7 ounce. And I think this is in the 300-ish range or so retail. Again, I will look. I found this, I think it was on Joma Shop for in the 200 range. It's pricey, but it is a luxurious smelling fragrance. Like if aldehydes could be luxurious, this is it, even though there aren't any aldehydes featured as notes on the Xerjoff website. It totally presents as luxurious, soapy, essential oily, thick, elegant amazingness. Pikovaya Dama. Then perhaps the most polarizing of the bunch that I have here. I used to have a flanker of this and I let go of the flanker in preference of just the original. They're both lovely. This is White Linen from Estee Lauder. Y'all, when we talk about those groundbreaking, iconic fragrances, White Linen was one for the aldehyde space. In my opinion, I have lots of stories about what this smells like to me and some of the memories I have associated with it. So those are all in other videos. This is classified as a floral fresh feeling on the Estee Lauder website, and they list the type as lush floral. I love that. For me, this is lush soap. Luxurious, also smelling soap, strong, pungent, laundry-esque aldehydes. So there are white florals featured along with orris and a base of vetiver and moss and amber. Friends, this smells so crispy, soapy to me, like crisp, clean. I love the name of white linen. So if you think about freshly pressed linen in the summer, smelling almost like sun-dried laundry, for those of you that have actually washed clothing and hung it out to sun dry, the fresh smell that it has, along with these bright, very bright, light in density and texture florals. I don't know what's giving this fragrance the thickness that it expresses, but it's not, the florals don't come across as thick to me. A little bit of the description from the website, it evokes the crispness of clean sheets. There it is. The coolness of white flowers and fresh greenery. So in my mind, even though I have specific memories of this in New York and people wearing this, and particularly this one woman that had this white dress on, this huge, it wasn't a dress, it was a top and this flowing long white skirt. She had her head wrapped in a white sort of head turban. I'll never forget the image of that woman walking past me. I told you I wasn't going to tell you the story, and here we are. She walked past me in one of those overhead train stations in New York, outdoors, because the train stations down below in New York smell completely different. We don't want to talk about those smells. This was overhead, over the street, out in open air. And I just remember this amazing, clean, fresh, crisp smell off of her that was strong and captivating. White linen is strong. So I would suggest spraying lightly if you want to try this. Some people feel like this is a reformulated version that is a shadow of its former self. If it is reformulated, there is enough of the original DNA in here that I love it. And if you want to get something that's closer to the original form, you may want to look up like an oil form of this. So for me, I'm happy with this. This isn't a fragrance that I would dare wear often. You really have to be in the mood because it's a fragrance that will wear you. That whole thing, if you're not careful with it, if you don't know what you're doing, you have to be a trained professional. I'm just kidding. You don't have to be a trained professional, but you do have to have an appreciation for strong fragrances that have a lot of presence to really get what this. I don't even remember what I was saying before. I was so rudely interrupted about white linen, but it is a classic, old school aldehydic scent. Old school as in it is an older fragrance. I don't think this smells as vintage as perhaps maybe some people would think that it does, but check this one out. One of the more controversial, along with Pikovaya Dama, along with number 5. And then the ones on the front end of the video are much easier wearing. That is the video for today. Let me know if you have other suggestions for soapy florals for our friends here on YouTube to check out. Leave it down in the comments. See you next time.